Hello, welcome to Sunday Conversations. I hope everybody is doing all right out there tonight. With me, as always, my great co-host, Jackie. How are you doing?
Doing really good, Daniela. Thank you. How are you?
Doing good, thank you. I thought we had a great show last week.
I did too.
I think people enjoyed it. We talked about some old stories from way back. Hello to everyone in the chat. I know you've all been waiting quite a while. How you doing, Jamie? Hope you're doing all right. Francesca, great to see you too. We were talking about last week. We were talking about that guy. It's completely
Davy Crockett.
David Crockett, completely
Yep.
got out of my head. And we did a bit of a search on the internet. We found some old stories. I just wanted to start with. Hang on, I've got to say thanks to Blake Gibson, who's in the chat tonight. He sent me some information, and he's going to be sending me some more stuff. But there is something that I can read out, and this is an interesting one because this is two accounts from the exact location where the young boy a few years ago, Casey Hathaway, went missing and claimed that a bear had kept him warm through the night. It was about a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Do you remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bear looked after him. It's about 3 years old, I think. It was quite a strange story.
Yeah, really bizarre.
Cold as well, I think. I don't know what time of year, but I think it was quite cold.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll read these accounts that were from 1875. So quite a while ago. And the first one is August the 21st, 1975. Freaks of a Strange Animal, this article was called. It was from the New Bern Weekly Journal of Commerce. Asa Grundy, a resident of Kit Swamp, relates a strange and startling incident that occurred in his immediate neighbourhood on Thursday, August the 19th, and which has occasioned considerable excitement and alarm among the inhabitants thereabouts. It's really written in that time, that era as well. So if it sounds a bit strange, it's because that's how it was, the way they spoke, I guess, then. It appears that for some time past, a strange-looking animal has occasionally been seen by different parties lurking on the outskirts of the forest between sundown and dark. But until recently, no one had been able to approach the stranger near enough to describe its appearance. From the description given by Asa, we conclude it to be a nondescript, which Barnum, the great showman, would be glad to possess even at an expense of thousands of dollars. Its face and appearance is quite similar to that of the wanderoo, having a long snowy beard or mane, while its body closely resembles that of a baboon, though from the knees down its feet and limbs are, in shape and form, almost precisely human. In height, it would measure about 5 feet, while its volume around the chest would eclipse the Cardiff giant. Asa states that this nondescript has for several weeks past been preying upon poultry, garden vegetables, and green corn to an alarming extent. When on Thursday morning last while, his little girl of 5 years was at play in the corn crib with a neighbourhood's child and himself at work stripping fodder in the fields nearby. He heard the children screaming, the dogs furiously barking, and his wife loudly crying for assistance, whereupon he swiftly ran towards the point from whence the cries proceeded, and at the edge of the cornfield, face to face, this singular being with the children, one in each paw, making directly towards the woods. At the sudden approach of Asa, being taken by surprise, halted for a moment, and as it partially turned to change its course, a well-directed blow felled it to the earth, and the children were released without injury. But before its capture could be accomplished, it sprang from the ground and with lightning rapidity gained the covering of the woods where all traces of its whereabouts remains as yet a mystery, through the forest for miles around that have been thoroughly searched. Much excitement and fear prevails throughout the section and no mother will again rest in peace until the strange intruder is captured and rendered harmless. We would suggest that those of our young men fond of adventure muster a company with the view of securing this nondescript prize, as the undertaking would, if success crowned their efforts, be both pleasurable and profitable to them.
Wow.
So I haven't heard that term before, the wanderoo.
Wanderoo?
Have you heard of
Yeah. No. I mean, we used to have these underwear growing up called Wonderoos, but
that? Oh, okay. I'm not sure
not a Wanderoo.
connected to that. I'm looking on Google, can't find anything. This little monkey's come up. A wanderoo definition meaning. Let's have a look. See what it says.
That's interesting.
Wanderoo, macatic monkey. I'm probably not saying it right. Macaca salinus of India and Sri Lanka, having black fur with ruff of long greyish fur on each side of the face. So a wanderoo is this. That's the only thing that I can see. I wonder if it was like some sort of monkey.
Oh, the macaque, or yeah. Yep. Wow.
So
Hmm.
who knows? That's the only example I can find.
Interesting.
And anybody in the chat heard of Wanderoo? Oh, here we go. All right, yeah, sorry.
Oh, Wanderloo.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
it did say, didn't it, the snowy beard? So maybe they use that.
So it resembled that, which is interesting because the blue-eyed drawing that you guys did on your Drawing Bigfoot show almost has that kind of, long flowing seems hair,
Yeah. I'm not going to
Interesting.
hand. But again, two kids, carrying two kids. So that's not that's something bigger, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can do that. That's got the strength to do that.
Yeah. And haul off and run with them like that.
So this other one here, this was in September 1975. Another attempt to kidnap. Here we go. The inhabitants of Kit Swamp are in ecstasies over the capture and death of a strange animal for which some time past has been prowling about the neighbourhood, preying upon their gardens, poultry, etc., and even attempt to carry off little children. This is like a follow-up almost of the same thing, isn't it?
Sounds like it.
As reported in a recent number, August the 21st of this journal, in which a description of the animal is also given. Through Adam Story, that's his name, Adam Story, an inhabitant of Kit Swamp, we were enabled to publish the gratifying news of the death of this animal, as well as the particulars concerning its capture, which are both startling and interesting. It appears that our informant Story, in company with two neighbours named Eli Sparrow and Frank Hanson, have for some time past been in search for this wily kidnapper, and on Wednesday morning last, for the first time since its attempt to carry off two children previously mentioned, they espied it lurking on the outskirts of a small clearing owned and worked by a woman named Maria Harkley, who, with her two children, the youngest being a boy about 4 years of age, and the elder girls some 3 or 4 years older, were at the time engaged near the woods gathering blackberries. Story, who was sitting with his companions upon a large pine log near the clearing, was the first to discover the animal, which at some distance off was cautiously wending its way towards the little boy. Then about 50 yards from his mother, and in plain view of the men who, at the suggestion of Story, secreted themselves behind the log upon which they had been sitting, and where they could, without being observed, watch the movements of the intruder. As the animal approached the edge of the wood, it noiselessly ascended a tree and peered through the branches towards the clearing for several minutes, and then descended and directed its course towards the little boy, who was then in fair range and within gunshot of the men behind the log, with their guns ready to fire at the proper moment. It was evident that the animal intended to kidnap the boy, but the men decided that they would not fire upon him until they were quite sure of its intentions, as they desired to capture him alive. Slowly and stealthily, the animal crept along the bushes, occasionally raising himself up to take a survey of the premises until he had reached within 10 feet of the boy, when, as he arose and was about to spring upon the little fellow, Hanson and Sparrow, aiming at his lower extremities, fired, from the effect which the creature uttered an unearthly yell and fell to the ground. The men rushed towards the wounded creature, but before they could reach him, he was up and, with a running limp, swiftly made for the woods, where for a time he eluded his pursuers. Though from the blood left behind the trail, he was easily traced, yet owing to thick bramble bushes and deep morasses, it was with great difficulty followed. However, they kept up the chase for about 2 hours, and when they last came to a chaparral so dense that it was impossible to get through it without the aid of an axe, which of course they did not have with them, upon examining the premises carefully, they succeeded in finding a small opening close to the ground and just large enough to admit the body of a man by creeping on his hands and knees. This opening was found to be partially covered by an old tree stump, upon which spots of fresh blood were plainly distinguished, and showing conclusively that the wounded animal had passed through with the aperture and gained his place of abode. The question now was who was going to venture to crawl through the opening in search of the fugitive. When Story volunteered to make the perilous adventure, and with his gun before him, he entered the dark tunnel, not knowing at what moment he might be attacked from within. After crawling distance of about 20 feet, the muzzle of his gun came in contact with a hard substance, which was vigorously pushed, as he succeeded in removing and found it to be a short piece of plank about 2 feet in width, which had been set up edgewise against the inner entrance of the opening and supported by a large pine knot, thus shutting out the light from the tunnel through which he had passed. Upon the removal of this plank, he crawled out into the open clearing about 3 or 4 yards square, and the first thing he met his gaze was the animal in question. He immediately called out to his companions, who could now plainly see through the small opening, and they at once started to creep through. But before they could reach the clearing, the animal, or nondescript, seeing of no way of escape, made a spring for Story, who had raised his gun in position to fire. As the animal neared him, he pulled the trigger, and the charge entered its body and fortunately put an end to its existence. The carcass of this wonderful being was carried to the settlement, where hundreds of men and women and children from miles around had the opportunity of viewing it, and much rejoicing was manifested over its capture and death. Story and Hanson brought the skin of the animal to the city on Thursday, when it was forwarded through Captain Hall of the steamer Gary to Baltimore, with the view of having it stuffed for exhibition. There you go. That's a long one.
Yeah, but fascinating. A lot of details in it. Like when there's a lot of people that, oh, they disappear. Well, sounds like it made itself a little hidey hole to go and
Yeah,
get through almost, and that's a lot of the things that people are thinking, like the structures or different things that they find out there.
maybe they're just red herrings, or they're just, maybe
Yeah,
there's, there is some underground stuff, or denser areas where they have little dens that people just don't get
don't
to.
notice.
Who's going to go through briars and bushes unless you know how to get through, like you say, with an axe or whatever? Why would you?
Yeah,
They can obviously, get through anything without seemingly any effect. Walking over brambles and thorns and whatever they do.
it's quite fascinating though. But there's no real description of what it looked like.
No, this is this is what I was thinking, Blake. This is Blake who sent me this
Yeah.
thing. Who did they send it off to? Where is it?
Where is it?
Can we
What
find
did it
out?
look like? Yeah.
It looked like, yeah, that would be interesting. But he said, that hole was enough to get a man through, so it doesn't sound like it was something big, maybe like Bigfoot, but something similar.
Yeah, and didn't he say it was only like 5 foot tall, or did I get that wrong?
I don't think I mentioned height.
Okay. All right.
I'm pretty sure I didn't. The search continues. Well, good luck. If you do find any information, definitely let us know. And
Yeah.
I'll definitely try and have a look. There must be some paperwork somewhere. Who knows?
Very intriguing.
Trail at least.
It also, there's another one where there was a body. They had a body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, doesn't say much what they did with the carcass itself, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, skinning something. What would you do with the?
Yeah, I'm.
Interesting, isn't it?
Next.
It could have been a baby Bigfoot, Max. It could have been a juvenile or just something smaller. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anything is absolutely possible. But yeah, Wanderoo.
A Wanderoo.
And go on.
Well, they have like all these different names, like the Wonder. Now that we've got one, was it Wanderoo or Wanderloo?
Wanderoo.
Wanderoo. Okay.
Wanderoo. So yeah, who knows? Everyone is giving things different names, aren't they? Or whatever they think. This is in 1870 something as well. They're just trying to, you see something, the closest thing it reminds you of is what you're gonna call it.
Right. And then Davy Crockett, they were calling them Yahoos, right? Like that was so that very interesting.
Interesting why they said that. So
and Gigi Rougarou, yeah.
So apparently he went towards on the steamer. I guess that's a train to Baltimore. So that could be the clue where the body is, where the hide is. So who can
to be stuffed and
displayed somewhere? Yeah.
Wonder if it ever was.
Oh, it's last year. Missing 3-year-old says bear kept him warm and safe. So,
wow. That makes.
I wonder what he actually said, and whether who translated it to a bear kept him warm and safe. How did he describe safe? 3-year-old, is he going to use the word safe?
Right. What were the particular details?
Would a 3-year-old use the word "I felt safe"? It's hard to know, but it's quite a young age.
Yeah, because it would depend on the child. It would.
Yeah. So how did it describe what was safe? To him. How did he describe that? I'd love to know. And what did he say? No, it wasn't a bear. It was something bigger. Something like I don't know, hairy man.
Wasn't there another child, like quite some time ago, that claimed that a bear had kept it warm and was feeding it berries, and I vaguely remember.
It's a different one. I don't know if that's
that's what. No, it would definitely be a different one because this was like I would almost want to say in the 70s, but I may be wrong. Because Les Stroud kind of went and followed the path that this kid supposedly was on. And
right.
Yeah.
To that. Lindsay, I did get it, and I'm pretty sure I wrote back to you, but I'm sorry if I didn't. I may have had something in my head to reply back to you. Maybe I didn't. So I'll bring that up and we'll go through that next week. But it was really fascinating stuff, and I think I was messaging you and wanted to say, where did you get all this from? But I maybe didn't send it, so apologies about that. Oh, the steamer was a boat, likely to be a boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. Steamboats.
You'll probably know better than me. Missouri calls them momos or momo.
Hmm.
Different.
Wow. There's a lot of different references. It seems like, once everybody kind of I guess the Patterson Gimlin is where Bigfoot really got the name solidified pretty
Yeah,
much,
I
right?
think was it not Jerry Crew who found the prints
Mm,
around his logging machine or whatever. It was in the snow, and I think that got in the newspaper.
yeah,
And I
you're right.
feel for, and I need to get actually Carl on. He's his great nephew. He's
Oh,
Carl Crew, and I've interviewed him before. And I should actually get him back because he's actually writing a book, or he's making a film about it all. So I'll get in touch with him and get him on because he knows a lot about Bigfoot. He was a
awesome.
great guest. He's an actor as well. He played Jeffrey Dahmer in the Secret Life of Jeffrey Dahmer
Ooh,
just as it all happened. So he's a fascinating character and knows a lot about Bigfoot, obviously, because it was like in the family. It was international news when he found these prints and made these casts. And there's a lot to the story, but we'll get him on. We'll
yeah,
get him on and we'll chat to him.
that would
Um,
be great.
but yeah, it was a while ago. Texas Giant Dogger, there was one in the Missing 401 from the 1800s where a girl claimed to be fed berries, and when her father asked why she didn't reply when they called, she said she claimed it wouldn't let her.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Texas Jack. I knew there was one from way back. So
Mm.
that's interesting.
I
So,
wonder how she got away eventually. Did it let her go?
yeah,
Did it
I
have
don't
her?
yeah, I don't remember all the details on that, but there's there's that reference now. There's more than one account of a child referencing a bear, because their field of reference is going to be somewhat limited, depending on the environment they're raised in, of course. But how many animals are they really going to be able to say what that thing looks like? They're certainly not going to name off an orangutan, or if they're from over
Yeah.
here.
I actually had a lady on Hidden Existence probably like 3 years ago. I think it was quite an early guest, Robin Hyatt, and she has got a YouTube channel, and she believes she was abducted by one. She was camping with her family, and she went. I think she was like 7 or 8, maybe a little bit younger, and have a feeling she went behind some trees to have go to the toilet or whatever, or something like that. But she went out of view, and the next thing she remembers is being picked up in something's arms, and she's got his back to it, obviously, but she just felt, that they were running. There was, kind of speed going on, and she woke up face down in a pond, in a stream, just as her parents were found her.
Wow.
It was a while ago. I'll have to go read, watch through it again, but it was a pretty fascinating encounter, and all she remembers is this big, furry arm around her. Uh, she's just a little kid, and it running, moving fast, and then just at the same time, she comes out. She's got a face in the water, and her parents are there. Really, really interesting.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Huh. It's terrifying, though, as a parent. Oh, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Happy Father's Day to everyone. That's what we were
Right.
going to say at the beginning.
That's right.
I completely forgot. Yeah, so all you guys out there, all you fathers,
Yeah.
hope you're having a good day. Francesca I will get in touch with Donnie and see if we can do a swap. Or
Mm.
I'll get him on. Maybe we can talk about it all with
Oh,
Donnie.
yeah. Oh, yeah. There's
It'd be
quite a
great.
lot going down there.
Yeah. And also this, what I've suggested before is, if you're in, say, like a small community or, put a sign up somewhere saying, have you had a Bigfoot encounter? Or has anybody noticed it? Leave an email address on. Just
Mm.
see who you get locally. If there's a place where you can
Oh.
put a local an ad in, like a supermarket. I don't know where you put your ads up in the library or wherever. But how
Hmm.
about, reaching out to people and seeing if anybody emails you? Let's
Right.
see if we can get some like local Bigfoot stories from your
That'd
local
be good.
area.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep asking all the people around, what do you have? And it's funny because the other day we had someone on the lake, and you could tell he was an old school Alaskan, and I went down and talked to him, and that's one of the first. Of course, I had a shirt on, so kind of helps, bridge that gap of the conversation.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. So who's that? Who's got a good encounter? Lex Xenos.
Oh.
I was hunted by these entities as a child. My mother saw one looking at me with hatred in its eyes. A few minutes later, it somehow made my body move on its own in order to make me go off the trail. That's interesting. Do get in touch if you want to share a little bit more about that. What are you calling that, a Bigfoot or this Wanderoo? Was it something? What can you describe what you saw? But definitely get in touch if you'd
Yeah,
like to share a little bit more with us. That's fascinating.
definitely.
So we have another. Well, you've been doing a lot of work this week. You've been doing a lot of research for tonight's show. You've been
Oh,
busy. I've been going on. I'm getting there. But we got there eventually.
yeah,
And it's I'll let you.
kind of pulled it together.
You pull. Yeah, just
Well, to
deliver.
kind of go off of, Davy Crockett,
Yeah.
and the wild frontier, we there's also another great frontiersman, Daniel Boone, and these are very well renowned frontiersmen, and so a lot of their tales are out there, but these particular ones I don't think are very familiar with a lot of people. And Daniel Boone, he comes back. He's got 10 children. So, as a father, I thought it was kind of interesting that he'd be great to talk about for today, too. But he was born in like November in 1734, and he died in September 26th of 1890. So he was 85 years old. And the older he got, the more he started sharing his encounters because he just, he didn't fear ridicule anymore. And so there's quite a few different people out there that have stories. Even Theodore Roosevelt has some of the stories that was heard from Daniel Boone's encounters. But if you want, would you like me to share one of them first, and then you can? Okay.
You share the ones you found.
Okay. So the one in particular that I find fascinating is he was on his way to Kentucky, and he had hurt his foot really bad, and it was really abscessed. And so he needed to rest and actually work on it for a while. So he found a cave near a stream that was could facilitate exactly what he needed, and he could hold up for a few days. And so while he was settled in, on his second night, he heard this loud crashing through the trees, and he thought the river was flooding. That's how loud it was. And the next thing he knew, there was this 10-foot hairy creature looming over him in his cave. And he just kind of laid there, and it was sniffing very vigorously all over him, his private parts, I mean, all over him. And then it moseyed onto his gear, went sniffing through all of his stuff, and then was gone. And so the next morning he thought, well, maybe I just dreamed that, And so that night, the same thing repeated. So he thought, okay, well, this is obviously not a dream. This this is really happening. And that the next day he's down by the river cleaning out his foot, the abscess in his foot, and he hears this crashing in the bushes behind him. And he turns around just in time to notice that thing lobbing a live deer towards him through the air. So as this deer is flying through the air towards him, the original Santa Claus, so he he manages to dodge it. But at that point, he realizes, okay, maybe I'm not wanted here. This is probably my clue. It's time to leave. So he does exactly that and, bails out of that area. But that was one of his
Wow.
first real encounters, and that was, pretty substantial. I don't know about getting a deer tossed at you, a live deer.
Just wonder how, over the years, obviously more people are going out into the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Or were the people, the same amount of people out in the woods back then? Were they more, they're sort of desensitized a little bit, some of them, I think, to humans in a way. Maybe because of the curiosity thing, whereas a bear just is either going to kill you or it's not.
Right.
There's no kind of like, eventually it gets to like people,
Yeah.
wants to be his friend and wants to study them. So you have to wonder whether they were more aggressive back then or more,
territorial or
yeah.
Especially with all the expansion taking place, that was going on. And it's fascinating though, because again, he felt like that was its cave and he was intruding on it, which again, a lot of people have said that that's where they hide, that's where they live in these cave systems and stuff like that, and it's very intriguing when you find these little layers that seem to match up regardless of time, place, I find it very intriguing.
Yeah.
I think that the one that you're going to read for us is far more
Interesting.
yes,
The detail
very, very detailed.
is pretty. I'm just having a quick look at it now, making sure I've got it all in order. So this was 1876, and this is about Boone relaying a story to a guy called the Reverend William Payne, and I think his son was writing this or recounting this again, and they'd. I'm going to start with. I should start at the beginning, really. About 11 o'clock, Captain James Ward said to him, this is to Boone, he would like him to recite your encounter that you had with a giant which you killed. I would like to have my own memory refreshed, and there many here who have never heard your account of it from your own lips. My father, Reverend William Payne, remarked at this moment that he, the giant, was over 10 feet high. This was present in the company. There was present in the company a gentleman by the name of Campbell, who inadvertently and without thought said, "Impossible that any man could be so high." Captain James Ward immediately responded, "Mr. Campbell, you must leave here now. For a while, you stay, Colonel Booth. For a while, it's the way it's written. It's very, I'll get it. For a while you stay, Colonel Boone will not open his mouth again." And they went on to explain Colonel Boone's peculiarity in not speaking in the presence of anyone that had thrown shade of a shade of doubt over what he had said or might say, and which my father confirmed. Colonel Boone, having said in response to my father that the giant was over 10 feet high, the unfortunate remark of Mr. Campbell painfully suspended all further talk while Campbell remained, so far as Colonel Boone was concerned. This painful suspense was relieved about 12 o'clock by the coming in of Mr. Moss and taking the Colonel and his own friends to his house for refreshments and dinner, and I did not hear this giant story then. I was delighted at about 4 o'clock by the return of the old gentleman and some of his friends to the store, where they remained until it was time to go to Mr. Motcher's, to the party. This is quite long-winded. On our way to Mr. Motcher's residence, I walked beside Colonel Booth and said to him that when he wished to leave the party, for him to give me a square of the arm, and I would get his hat, and we would quietly leave by the back way and come back to the store. He said, "Thank you, Honey. I shall depend on you, for I dislike to be in a crowd where I have to receive so much attention." I was surprised at his giving me the signal about 9 o'clock, though delighted with the hope of hearing the giant story. On reaching the counting room, where we had plenty of fine apples, I said to him that I longed to hear the story about the giant. He replied, "You shall have it, honey, but I would not have opened my lips to this if the man had remained. If that man had remained." Colonel Boone's story of the giant, he said it was in the spring of the year that he was then living in Boonesborough, that the corn was about half leg high, that on getting up one Sunday morning he found his two horses had been stolen by Indians, and he saw by the signs there were 2 Indians. He and his son immediately got ready and went in pursuit. They pursued the track to the head waters of Hinkston Creek to Colt Spring, which had the date of February 1778, which had been cut into a tree by Wim Colk, who entered the land and was living on it when I knew him. Boone was present when the tree was marked. They pursued the track down the creek and crossed a little mound where Mount Sterling is now located. They pursued the track down the creek to where it empties into Licking River, which they crossed to the right in pursuit. Are you all right? Sorry, did you go?
Oh, it's okay. I didn't know if it was me or not.
All right, could have been me.
We both did.
No, I didn't. I've lost my place. Oh, yeah, I've got that place.
It's a magic trick.
Yeah, it's weird. They come so near upon the Indians that their fire was still burning where the Indians had stayed before they crossed the Ohio River. He and his son immediately made a raft and crossed over, but on ascending the opposite bank, they found signs of about 500 Indians. They knew that further pursuit was useless and turned back. The land below the mouth of Licking River. This was about 3 o'clock in the evening, intending to go about 10 miles down to a spring that he knew of, which came out at the foot of a hill where there was fine open woods and grass, usually abound in deer, and they stood in need of provisions, as they could shoot none while in pursuit of the Indians, for fear of putting them on the alert by the report of their guns. They found the spring and encamped. There was some rain that night, and the next morning was misty and foggy. The hill ran in the direction of their way home. Boone took one side of the hill and his son the other, and as they walked about the same speed, they could be in hearing of each other's guns. At about 10 o'clock, the fog had cleared off. He heard his son's gunfire and immediately heard it fire again. From the last report, he knew that the bullet had been put down by his son without a patch. I don't know what that means. He immediately hastened to the crest of the hill, as he feared that his son had either shot a bear or panther and wounded it, and it had made flight, maybe it meant. But on reaching the top of the hill, he could not see his son anywhere. But on looking for a moment, he saw at 250 yards from him the largest man he had ever seen. He was walking very fast with his face set in a particular direction. On casting his eyes in the same direction, he saw his son behind a tree, loading his gun, and the giant was about 75 yards from him. He immediately levelled his gun, but there were so many trees and the giant walked so fast that he was afraid to shoot for fear he might miss. The giant got up to his son and caught him by his buckskin dress with one hand while the other jerked his gun from him, threw it and break it off at the bridge. Then catching his son by the nape of the neck and the seat of his breeches and raised him up over his head, just as easy, honey, as I would raise up a child, and slammed him on the ground. He raised him the second time and slammed him in the same way, for I was afraid to shoot for fear of wounding or killing my son. But now I had to shoot, or a third slam would be sure to kill him, if he had not already done it. While the giant was stooping to raise him the third time, I fired, and the giant fell over on my son. I immediately ran up and jerked him off to find my son senseless and not breathing. I immediately made every effort for his restoration to life. It seemed to me more than an hour before he breathed. He finally came to, and after using water freely from my canteen, I so far recovered him so as to set him up against a tree, and was glad to find no broken bones. In about an hour more, he stood up and talked. I asked him where he had aimed to strike the giant. He said he had aimed to hit him in the heart both shots. The giant was naked. I turned him over on his back and found both of the bullet holes near the left nipple and about 2 inches apart, but neither of them had entered the body, but had passed around and came out the back. I then passed my finger into each of the holes and found the giant had no ribs, but solid bone about 3/4 of an inch thick, which I found out by cutting through the bone with my tomahawk. My own shot struck him in the left eye, which was fortunate. The giant was not an Indian, for he was pale yellow with long yellowish hair, and not black as is common among Indians. His body was likewise covered with short hair, not very thick. His teeth were all naturally grown together in his head, with rather small eyes and nose, like with very large feet and hands. We then stretched him out and laid a supple jack, could be a walking stick, 9 feet, and we measured his length. And in measuring it with my hands, I found that he was at least 10.5 feet high. My son then got another supple jack, and we then made another measurement. One of these was carried by my son and me, by myself, to Boonesborough, where we measured them by the squares, when we found the height to be 10 feet 8 inches. This is the story of the giant as given me by Colonel Boone. I asked if he had ever heard of any such among the Indians and what they knew about them, if anything. He said they had a tradition of giant men and giant beasts, but that the Great Spirit had killed them all somewhere on the Osage River, Mo, but that he had never credited it. That's it. It's quite a crazy story that. One, how his son survived even 2 bashes.
Right? The full, like, that's, WWE style, or I think it's WWF now, but just
Something
full
like that.
body slams, and the other
Yeah.
thing is the penetration. Like, he heard that the first shot definitely landed. Like, he knew it landed, and then he figured if he had to shoot again the second time, the first shot either just wounded it and it was coming at him, and
Or
that's
if it's to go around, not go through, just to go
Mm.
around and out the back. And
yes,
the no ribs thing. Richard Farabee, thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
yes, thank you.
That's a biggie. That's a big
Yeah,
one. Happy
happy
Father's Day
Day.
to you. Yeah. Yeah, it's
But
crazy that he wrote this, that he recounted this story, that this had happened to him, and nobody's talking about it.
right, I know, and the fact that the way that he describes that chest, because when you hear like Fred in Alaska's encounter, if
Yeah.
you take a 30-06 on something, I'm sorry, it just blows your mind that it's still going to keep coming, right? But now when you maybe consider that they've got a full plate of their chest is like a plate of armor then.
Someone's asking for the link for this in the chat. I'm just going to post it now. It's in four. There's 4 different links to it, so bear with me. I'm just going to put them all in. I'll try and remember to put them in the description after the show. And that's 1, 2. Just bear with me a second.
Yeah, I think it's really good though that the more that we recognize, like the first story that I had shared was back in 1782, and that's, when you look back into these stories and they go back so far and they're coming from, Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone. These are people who are very well respected as far as our history over here in America goes. Daniel Boone is, so prominent to Kentucky, and that area. And his namesake, the forest that's there, is where a lot of these encounters took place. And there are still encounters today, to this day, that are happening in this area.
Scotty J lives near Licking River.
Ooh.
Yeah, and did you know that? I mean, did you know that bit of history? Because just makes you wonder what history of Bigfoot is where you live. And I'm talking about everybody in the chat. You just don't know what's been going down a few centuries ago. And
Right.
I would really love to, people to do put a sign up somewhere, a little ad up somewhere in your local village or whatever community centre, and ask people to email you if they've had an encounter in that area.
Yeah.
I just think you get a lot more information, I believe, from people who don't come on these channels, these shows, people who just want to talk to another person. You'll get so much more detail than I think what you get when you come here. People just open up a lot more when there's no pressure of a camera going live, people watching you.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be a good experiment.
It's a great idea. Yeah, because there's a few places that I think of right off the bat out where I'm at that's pretty far removed, and a lot of people come there for dinners and, and it's, it's a hangout. It's a bar and grill area, but it would be interesting, what you might find coming from people that, do not hang out on the internet. They don't, they're not really probably watching TV a lot either. They're living their life, they're out there surviving. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to say.
Max, you're right. Native American legend. That's where it's all going back to, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, not everybody watches YouTube. Really. I know lots of friends who just don't look at YouTube. When I said, do you watch YouTube? You're like, no. And I think, oh, you've got a life.
Right.
Look at you. Oh, I bet you're really busy all the time, doing really like constructive and, needy stuff. And not just sat on your bum, So
Right.
it's bittersweet. But yeah, there's other outlets, or there isn't other outlets where people can go, and you never know. You might just hook up a Bigfoot friendship in your local town and start raising more awareness. I mean, who knows which way it could go.
Yeah, it could be very interesting what you end up hearing too. And hearing like this encounter in particular with Daniel Boone, the I find that intriguing about the chest area, and he had to use his tomahawk to even be able to, figure out how thick it was, And so when you hear all of these other encounters where people have shot at him and they've walked away, it gives a little bit more credence to maybe what is happening, and it's maybe not so supernatural. Maybe it isn't a supernatural experience at that point.
Why do we think we know where the heart is on every animal?
Well, probably because most animals, after they're all generally in the same locations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like an elephant could be well in a different because of its design, because it's on all fours. I know it's going to be somewhere around the chest, but who knows that? Who knows what different makeup there is? If there's more bone to protect, maybe they're further back or something. I know it sounds obvious that the heart is where the heart is, but you just don't know.
Yeah, their anatomy, what is that? They're obviously, the anatomy is different from just this description. He gutted one and shared what he saw. We don't have anyone that has that I've heard of. I could be wrong, but that.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I have heard a couple of times that the organs are in different places. So I need to try and find again where I heard that.
Yeah.
And what they've got. Cows have more than one stomach, don't they?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Worms have loads of hearts, don't they, or something? Again, they're made up. They're quite complex worms, actually. The
They
stuff
are
there.
very.
So who knows? Yeah, it could be Ken. Could be in exactly the same place, but they're so wide and so much muscle as well. I mean, maybe this is just a hard thing to get through. Muscle, bone, the skin. Who knows how dense that is? How thick. Right. So I don't know.
If the skin is somewhat like a rhinoceros skin on top of a serious breastplate like that, you've got, almost like Kevlar on top of, that. It really, it's very profound though, because a 30-06 is going to take anything down, and to throw 3 shots at it and to kill and to still have something walk past that would tend to lean that, oh man, there has to be something supernatural about it, right? Like, it was able to escape a 30-06, 3 30-06 rounds, but now you can maybe put some more thought into just the makeup of it.
Ms. Jonesy's garden. How are you doing? My local public library have had Bigfoot meetings in the past, and I believe it is open more for the kids to see a post for information to relate to their parents.
Interesting.
Yeah. There was another comment as well. Blake again, yeah, 2 different worlds when locals talk with someone they know versus a stranger, and what will they say and admit to. You're right. And, if you had an experience, you've never ever been able to talk to someone, and suddenly you see an opportunity to get a bit of, information, or, oh yeah, I can relate to that. You never know what it can open up. It could just be something really simple that really helps somebody, or gives them confirmation, or makes them feel like they're not the only one. Because, not everybody's internet savvy. Not everybody is, they're in their own place, their own village, and that is it. And they don't see anything further than that. People who just listen to the radio and never put a TV on, are just kind of ignorant to the stuff that's out there. So finding Absolutely. A little, ad, it might just spark something. I could do it here, but I doubt very much I'll get a response. Who knows though? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
You should. You
Yeah,
should. You never know. It'll
it's
be
quite.
really interesting because you do have a lot of ancient forests there too. You know.
Yeah, yeah. There's, and there are reports over here, so maybe I'll start looking into it a little bit more about what's going on in the UK, and try the little ad thing down the local supermarket, like Walmart equivalent. You don't know, where someone's. Well, yeah, there's a section where you can put ads in for whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to do that. If anyone does that, let us know.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting.
I'm definitely gonna do it.
Oh, Texas Jack. Technically, cows only have one stomach, but being really ruminants, it has 4 compartments made up of well, that's fascinating. Thank you for letting us know that. Appreciate that. But yeah, still, there's differences,
Right.
and
The
who knows?
biology is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? It would be interesting. Don't know if we'll ever find out. But any more other comments? Let me just have a quick look.
It's really interesting though, going back to the flying deer part. Like even to be able to pick up a deer, right? And it's a lot. It was a live deer at that.
Oh,
and to handle a live deer, pick it up, and then chuck it across some distance there. There's right there that also, there's a lot of power there.
yeah.
Phenomenal amount of power and agility and just a lot, right? Just to be able to grab a deer, a live deer, and grab a deer and just be able to pick it up and throw it. I find that.
Well, we had Austin Lee on the last drawing Bigfoot, who, witnessed a Sasquatch reach out, punch a deer in the ribs, and pick it up from its back legs and smack it into a tree. Like, just nothing to it to do that. So, yeah.
It lends a lot of credence to how they hunt.
Rocks are just marbles to them, aren't they?
Yeah, just
Yeah, when they're picking up deer.
they're just able to just snatch them.
The level, is that the nearest thing it could find to hand to, couldn't find a rock.
Right.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah.
Who knows? But look, we have come to the end of the hour. It's been fascinating again, going, back in time, hearing old stories. I'm going to try and find a few more out for next week.
Yeah.
And we can go into a bit more detail about stuff. If anyone's got nothing better to do, come on over to Hidden Existence in about 15 minutes. I'll be there with Jason. He went to a conference, can't remember where, but we'll be talking about it and probably other stuff. And we'll be back on Wednesday for Researcher's Report this time on Bigfoot Odyssey. So if I don't see you shortly over on Hidden Existence, I'll see you in the week on Wednesday back on here. Jackie, thank you.
Thank you,
As
Daniela.
usual, it's been fun. And
Happy Father's Day.
Hidden Existence. The link is in the description. It's the bottom link in the description. Like I say, if you got now better to do, come on over and join us in the chat. And happy Father's Day to everyone. I hope you're all having a great one. And until the next time, take care and bye-bye.